Well, welcome to the Christy Jones Show, where it's all about living your life to the fullest. I'm a life coach, speaker, and business owner in multifamily real estate, and I've had wild success in multifamily housing for over 25 years now. I am so passionate about helping others merge their success and lead a fulfilling life, and I bring it all together right here on this podcast. So join me and let's get started to live your life to the fullest. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the podcast this week. And yeah, I got a little tan going on. I do. If you're watching on YouTube, you're like, wow, she has a little glow. Well, that's right, because I just got back from vacation. Last week, I visited the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. That was my second time to go there. Had a fabulous time. My husband and I went, my cousin, her husband, the four of us absolutely balled out, had a great time. And I am back at it here at my desk this Monday morning and getting this podcast done. So my team that puts it together, so Patricia and Lauren, so they're not mad at me this afternoon because I'm behind schedule. So anyways, it's Monday morning. I'm fresh, I'm excited, and I want to I'm not going to just sit here and tell you about the vacation that I took, although I do have some pointers as you're going into your summer. Got a couple little nuggets that you might want to know about, but I want to share with you someone that I met briefly. So very brief interaction, but I want to share this with you. I want to tell you about this person because I think that his example is something that we can learn from, and that most likely you'll hear the story and then you'll kind of re-examine your own life, maybe your own current circumstance, and see it just a little bit differently. I believe that the story is going to give you more courage. I believe that when I share this with you, you're going to feel much more inspired, and you're going to go, what's the heck? What's my excuse? What am I sitting here saying all these things of why I can't do this and why this can't happen for me and why I can't go to this place I want to go, or accomplish this goal I have ahead of me, or achieve this thing at work that I'm wanting to do? What's my excuse? I think you're going to be really inspired by this story that I'm about to share with you. Before I jump into that, just a little, the nuggets I'm going to share with you is, number one, you need to go get the free download I have available for you on the Flourishing Summer Strategy. Why do you want that? Well, you want that. So come, like, let's say mid-September, you're not looking back at the last 2 to 3 months going, what the heck did I do? Why didn't I do some of the things that I wanted to do? Why was I working all the time? Why am I so damn tired? Why am I so irritable? Why do I feel like I'm just constantly in motion, doing, but I'm not being? So I have like a guide, a roadmap for you to lay out for yourself. You customize it for yourself. I'm simply giving you the guide and asking you the questions, the real questions that you need to like be thinking about so that you can set yourself up for massive success this summer and also massive amounts of fulfillment. So go down in the show notes. If you're on Spotify, if you're on, Apple Podcasts, just go down in the show notes, click the link. You'll get to where you just put in your name, and then you'll get it just get it right away. You'll get the download. And then if you're on YouTube, go down there as well in the description, and you will find it about halfway down. Okay. If you're seeing this any other place and you're like, I don't see where I click, what do I do? I want you just to comment the word summer, and my team will make sure you get it. Okay. All right. So that's one thing. Second thing I want to say is, yeah, I just went to Puerto Rico. It was amazing. And weather was great. You know how when you go to places like that, you get a little bit of like the rain, the rain is like, it's not a big deal. Like it comes down, it rains like maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and then it's over. And it's like a straight down rain. I live in San Diego, which is a straight down rain. And I also live in Oklahoma, which is like a sideways coming at you, maybe 50 miles an hour rain. So it's really nice. If it's going to rain when you're on vacation, it's really nice that it just comes down in a straight manner. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? It also helps when it's really warm, like 80 degrees. That's a bonus too. Kind of cools you off. No big deal. You're already in your bathing suit, so who really cares, right? But weather was really fantastic and we had a great time. I did some things on this trip to really, I did something to get myself out of my comfort zone. My cousin actually, she inspired me on that because she did it. And I knew if she did it, and she was like, I did not want to do this thing. And she did it with her husband. And then later I was like, well, I need to go do that obstacle course. And I wasn't, I was, I wanted to do the obstacle course. It was getting from land and through that, what I call murky water to where the inflatable obstacle course started that I didn't want to deal with. And then also, when you're done with the obstacle course and you go down this huge slide, you land in the murky water and then you have to swim back to where, you walked in to. I like oceans and I don't necessarily have to see the bottom when I'm in the ocean, but there's something about lakes or I don't even know if I would, I mean, I guess that was a lake. It was a body of water on the, surrounded, I think it was man-made. Who knows? I don't know. But it was within the community and there's like the golf course and all the things, but it was a lake. I mean, they had little boats on it and stuff, but it was dark. And I need to know what's in the water. I need it just like I didn't want my feet to touch the ground. Ooh, it just gave me the heebie-jeebies. Are there snakes? Are there alligators? I mean, I asked all the questions, and of course they say no. Only to which we did see a snake later when we were on the golf cart, and we see a snake like crossing the road. It's very tropical, it's very warm. I mean, I get it, there's going to be things, but how do I know that wasn't in the lake when I was there? I mean, are there snakes that just don't go in water? I don't know. I have so many questions, but those are the things I worry about when I'm in a lake. Now, why I don't worry about it in the ocean, I know it, I get it. There's sharks, there's all kinds of weird things in the ocean, but it just, I'm not, that doesn't bother me for some reason. A lake bothers me. Also, I digress. I know I'm really off topic, but I got to get this out, okay? This is like, because come on, just humor me here. I also, as because of my age and like the movies I grew up on and all of that, Jason with Friday the 13th, I watched that as, I don't know, maybe it was at a slumber party because I mean, my parents weren't going to let me watch that. It was a slumber party, it'd already been out in the theaters. I think maybe I was like 13. Um, Friday the 13th, and Jason was the figure that was like lurking in the water at the very end. Okay, like I'm also thinking like I realized that was a movie, but that was like I should not have watched that movie that at that age because it really messed with me. And now even to this day, like I'm dog paddling in the water. I'm trying to get over to the obstacle course, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, now that was a movie from a long time ago, and I know it was just a made up movie, but how do I not know that something's not going to grab my leg and then pull me out? Anyways, all these things going through my like crazy brain. And so that was really me stepping outside of my comfort zone because I did not want to be in that water. No, I did not want it. I think I felt some grassy stuff touch my foot when I first got in. It just freaked me out. I'm like, no. Anyways, I am big for getting out of your comfort zones. And so I did it. I was like, you're going to do it. You're going to be fine. And I was so glad that I did it. But had a couple different things like that on this vacation to where I really think that that's so important. You've got a new environment, new experiences, and we can't just stay in the comfortable. So I definitely stretched myself for sure. All right, so on with the podcast. What I want to share with you, what I feel like, well, the story about the murky water, the Friday the 13th movie that still is embedded in my brain from all those years ago. Well, that might just be like kind of entertaining. At least it is for me. I hope it is for you too. I want to get into what I want to share with you in this podcast and it's about someone that I met on my way back. And again, a brief interaction. And for privacy, I'm just going to rename him. We're just going to call him James, okay? And so we were on a flight from, just to kind of paint the picture, let's see, that day had gotten up at, I'm an early riser. So I was up at 5:30 a.m., out of bed by 6 a.m., and this is Eastern time. Started our day. We didn't have our flight until that night, which was great because we had all day to continue to do all the things. And that day we had moved to Old Town, and had, we're like just kind of messing around, going to places, seeing things, eating the food, all the stuff. So we head to the airport. Our flight departs Puerto Rico at 5:40 p.m. We go to Atlanta. Everything's cool, everything's smooth, everything's great. Flights, everything looks on time. We go to Atlanta, we change planes. There's a little like maybe, I don't know, a little behind as far as them departing, but not by much. We get on the plane in Atlanta. I'm like, okay, we're not going to land in Oklahoma City until I think it was 11:55 p.m. So I'm like, this is perfect. I'm going to get on this plane. I'm going to, have a little snack, and then I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm going to sleep all the way to Oklahoma City. It's going to be great. So that part happens, and we get going. And at some point in the flight, I doze off, which is perfect. And to which I woken up with extreme turbulence. And when I say extreme turbulence, I mean like at first it was like just a little bit of bouncing, but then it was that like, okay, let's practice our deep breathing. That kind of turbulence, it was that kind of turbulence. We were swaying back and forth and up and down, and I decided, you know what, because I get a little motion sickness. So I was like, the best thing for me to do is to fall back asleep. So I literally willed myself back to sleep. I'm like, I am just going to sleep through this. I don't even want to know what's happening. Like, I just don't even want to know. There's rain. There's all kinds of stuff going on outside my window. I'm a window seat girl. So, like, I can see it all. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to sleep. To which then, finally, something jolted me and wake up. Captain comes over the deal. He says that we're going to have to, there are like tornado cells over Oklahoma City airport and in that vicinity, and they're going to have to divert. It's too dangerous to continue. Obviously, the flight was very rough. So it's too dangerous to continue. We're going to divert to Tulsa, which is in Oklahoma, Tulsa Airport. And, distance wise, it's probably, I'm going to say like 100, 150 miles from Oklahoma City Airport. So we're diverting there. We've got to get on the ground. We're going to wait out the storm. And then we will just, it's the way it makes it sound. We're just going to get back in the air and we're going to continue our flight and off we will go. Okay. I mean, I'm like, that's cool. I mean, I don't want to like be in a plane going and challenge a tornado. So I'm like all on board. And our pilots, because when we were boarding and we saw the flight crew come on, they were, when I say younger pilots, I don't know. I mean, some pilots can be, I don't know, some of them look 80 to me. But these pilots were probably, I felt like they were close to my son's age. One of them, maybe 30-ish and maybe 35-ish, somewhere in there. Which I think I'm like, this is good. I like this. I mean, I like pilots that are young enough that they're going to make safe decisions because they got something to lose. You know what I'm saying? I know that's a wacky way to look at it, but I'm like, he's got a lot of life ahead of him. He looks like, he might have a girlfriend, a wife, kid. I don't know, something like he wants this to work. You know what I'm saying? So I know that's like a twisted way to look at it, but I used to be a flight attendant, people. So I've got a different little side angle to things. So, anyways, that's how I looked at it. And I was like, okay, these guys, and they ended up chatting a little bit with my husband and my cousin's husband before we had gotten on the plane. So, super cool guys. Anyways, other thing I noticed when we got on the plane, and this ties into the story, hang with me, is that on pre-boarding, there was when I say young man, meaning I'm going to guess, because I never did ask him when I actually got to meet him, how old he was, but I'm going to guess he is in his late 20s or right at that 30. Like he's not 22. He's not 35. He was like 28, 29, 30. Just when I heard the timelines of like, what he's doing and kind of what's going on in his life type of thing. So that's, and we're going to call him James. Okay. But when I did see James as he boarded the flight, he pre-boarded because he was 100% blind. He had I think it's called like this the stick, and I call it the walking stick, and it's what they use as their guide. And he had glasses on. He was a nice looking young man. Very, I would say, he's a handsome guy. He had good hair. Guys with good hair, I'm so jealous of you. Okay. I mean, I do have to do a lot just to have hair. So he had great hair. He was a good looking young guy. Anyway, so he boards the flight. And I remember seeing him board and just thinking, man, that's so cool. That's so cool that he's traveling solo. Well, I wasn't sure at that point if he was traveling solo, but I just was like, that's so cool. So, anyways, fast forward to where I was at. We're landing in Tulsa. We're heading down because we got to divert. We got to get out of the air. There's tornadoes around. We can't go to Oklahoma City. So we're sitting on the ground. Not going to share with you all the details that I experienced on Delta Airlines, but because Delta's a great airline. That's who I used to work for years and years ago. I've always loved Delta, but this was just a very unfortunate, this was a fiasco from this point forward. We grounded at about Central Time. It was like 12:20. And we proceeded to be on the tarmac in the plane with, I think there was like 170-ish, 100, I forget the count that they gave us. But it was basically, I mean, it felt like a very full flight, but 170 to 180-ish people on board. And we were on that aircraft for 3 hours on the tarmac. So we did not deplane until 3:30 a.m. And there were multiple reasons for that. Well, one, that's a pretty small city, an airport. Nobody was working. They couldn't get ground crew to, how they pull the plane up to the gate. How they, get that little tow thing and tow it in. There was nobody to operate the jetway bridge, so you could deplane. Then we had the issue, they said, of refueling. I'm not really sure how that came into, but the pilots did a great job of communicating. And the flight attendants, I have to say, they were really, really great. Those flight attendants worked really hard at keeping people comfortable. For 3 hours, 3 hours, we sat on the tarmac, like in a tube out there. Nobody's nobody. It's like we can see the airport, but like no, it's kind of one of those things like you're in this situation, although it wasn't that dramatic, and nobody's coming to save you, but you can see the lights on over there, but nobody's coming. But they're trying to talk to the pilots are talking to, Delta operations. Um, I don't know. They just kept saying, the operations department. So they're talking to them, they're talking to the pilots but nobody's coming. Like nobody's available. And we need fuel if we're going to continue, they said, to Oklahoma City, which I was kind of like, well, why didn't we have that fuel? Didn't we have that fuel to begin with? But I don't know. I have no idea because they shut the plane, the engines down while we were sitting on the tarmac for 3 hours. So, um, anyways, there we were. And nobody was coming. That's probably a whole nother little podcast I'm going to do because it's really frustrating when you're like a problem solver, although I don't know anything about airports and how the operations of that work, but I'm just saying like somebody has to be on call. In my business, in the apartment business, let me tell you something. If like I've got to have people that can fix problems, emergencies 24/7. And so I just thought it was weird. There's almost 200 people sitting out here for 3 hours, but there's nobody to come help us get off the plane. Then they couldn't put gas in the plane because there was nobody there qualified to refuel the plane. Anyways, they finally find somebody to come in that could pull the plane up to closer to the terminal. To which then they don't have stairs and they can't operate the jetway and they try to get manual stairs to let us out and it's pouring rain outside, but that's fine. And the stairs were too short for the type of aircraft. I mean, it was one thing after another. Eventually, I feel like what happened is somebody came to work and was able to get there that could operate the jetway, and then, but they couldn't get it all the way to the plane. So we had to walk over this little bridge that they portable bridge thing that they were like, be very careful. It's raining, so that part wasn't covered, and it wasn't super stable. And I mean, 50 times they were saying, go very slow, be very careful walking across this temporary little bridge until you get to the jetway. So, anyways, we get off, and as soon as I get off the plane, the uh, the gate, the monitor that I see, it said 3:33 a.m., 3:33 a.m. And I told my husband that, I mean, 333 is a significant number, just like 1111 is a significant number when it comes to, if you're into numerology, if you know anything about, the angel numbers, but 333, and it's 333 is mentioned a lot in, I don't know how many times, but it's mentioned in the Bible and it's used in a really significant way. So that number is huge to me. Anyways, I walk off and I see 'cause all these things are going through my head like, what's going to happen? What's going on? We're going to figure this out, but this is crazy. I was happy to be off the plane after 3 hours sitting out there. So it's 3:33 a.m. And then we're told, okay, everybody just wait here and then someone will tell you what's going to happen next. And they said we would be getting on the plane and continuing, but that didn't happen. Anyways, as I'm standing there, I then remember the guy I'm calling James, the blind man that I had seen board the plane. Then I see him come off the plane. And so I think to myself, wow, like I had to be super careful going across that little temporary bridge, the rain, all the things. And I thought to myself, the amount of bravery, the amount of courage that it takes when one of your, primary senses is gone, meaning your vision, and to walk forward and trusting that this is where I'm supposed to walk. This is where I'm supposed to go. And there was so many things going off in my brain at that time, just in that whole thought process of, not only in that moment, but in so many moments, most likely in his life. So I had that thought, and then we, again, go back. We're waiting for someone to, everyone's just, there's nearly 200 people now standing here waiting for someone to tell us because the airport is like, I mean, it's not open. This is not like an airport that has flights coming and going all hours of the night. And it just got worse. It turned into the gate agents they were so irritated at the passengers as a whole. They were the eye roll. It was really, really bizarre. Um, anyways, at that point, they're telling people that they can't get the plane won't be taking off, that they are going to see what they can do tomorrow. And in the meantime, you would have to get a hotel overnight somewhere at 3:30 in the morning. It's kind of weird. And get a hotel, and then they would be in touch. Or there was a long line that you could wait and try to get on a flight for the next day. Um, anyways, we waited in line for about 30 minutes and nothing. I mean, the first people in line hadn't even been handled in 30 minutes. To then we decide, which we'd already been looking at. I mean, you couldn't get a rental car because they don't open until 8. So we were looking at Uber. So now you have like close to 200 people looking to book an Uber for like a 2.5, 3 hour ride. Um, and at now it's 4 o'clock, a little after 4 a.m. And so we're kind of, discussing that and figuring that out. I have the Uber pulled up on my phone, but I mean, they're gonna go like hotcakes, right? So we're just like, okay, we'll see what happens. We'll probably get an Uber. Our luggage is on the plane. I was just like, I don't even care about my bag at this point. Like, I literally told my husband, they can just donate it to charity. I don't even care. Like, whatever. I'm just like ready to, let's just get home. And so, because we've been up since 5:30 a.m., and I did sleep for about an hour on the plane, but that's the only sleep I had. But your adrenaline kicks in, and then you just kind of, I mean, it's fine. Like, I literally was up for, I think it was 35 hours before, or 36 hours. Um, and then I took a short nap, and then I finally got back on track the next day. So really, I mean, the lack of sleep's not, it's not like the end of the world or anything like that. You just have to, your adrenaline kicks in and all of that. So anyways, while we're sitting there, decide like we're not going to stay in the line now to see what's going to happen tomorrow. We're just going to figure out how to get an Uber, how to get, we have about a two, it would be about a 2.5 hour ride. I look over and I'm getting back to James, okay? I look over in the terminal and I see James, which I didn't know his name at that point, but I see that the man standing there, the young man standing there. And he's just standing there. He's got a backpack and he has his I think it's called like their guide, this walking stick. And he's standing there and nobody's with him. No flight crew has approached him. The flight attendants and the captains, I mean, I get it. Like they've had a long day. I saw them walking down the terminal, like they're going to their hotel. They did their part and they did a great job. The gate agents in Tulsa, not so much. It was really, that just, and it wasn't that they couldn't solve the problem. It was their demeanor, and we were like to everybody. It wasn't just one person. I have to say, for 200 people, I was also very impressed that everyone stayed very calm. Nobody got upset. Nobody was acting like an idiot. Nobody was like, there was only one guy that was trying to act like he was like the aircraft know-it-all. And he had a carry-on bag and he just walked away and it was fine. Like you just, yeah, I mean, that's cool. He was kind of the know-it-all person that was starting to, tell everybody tell the airline what they needed to do. But he left, so that wasn't a big deal. But I mean, all those people, everyone was just, it was just so great to see like everyone was just like going with the flow, figuring out what they were going to do. Nobody, and even though the gate agents were so rude and the eye rolling and the tone of voice, it was unreal and nobody fed into that. So I thought that was really, really cool. We just let them behave the way they were going to behave, and everybody thought it was so bizarre, their behavior, the way they were communicating, and their body language was really, but nobody responded to it and or reacted to it. So I thought that was really great. So I look over and I see him and I realize, oh my gosh, nobody's traveling with him. And then he's kind of standing, he's lot like the group has gone closer to where the gate agents are, and he was kind of down the way a little bit, just standing there, and just kind of staring into the other direction. So once I saw him, I immediately went over to him and I introduced myself. And that's when I learned his name, which we're going to call James for the purpose of this podcast. And so I met James and asked him, hey, where he started his day, where he started traveling, and was it Oklahoma City that was his final destination, and kind of just kind of chatting with him a little bit. And so it was, and he had a cousin that was going to pick him up at the airport in Oklahoma City. And so initially that cousin was going to, wait up, but now that we're on the plane for 3 hours on the tarmac, and now it's after 4 a.m. and we're trying to figure out what everyone's, what we do and how we all make where we need to go. So I was talking to James and I said, well, James, where are you trying to end up? And he says, well, I was going to my cousin's house, and he lives in Shawnee, which is outside of Oklahoma City. And I was like, okay. And he said, but I went ahead and told him just to go to bed and I'll figure something out, because I mean, it was just getting so late. But he thought he was going to just catch an Uber from Oklahoma City airport to his cousin's house, which is not that big of a deal. Like, it's pretty close. But now he's 2.5 hours away. And so um, I said, well, James, he's like, well, I guess I'm just going to grab an Uber from here. And I said, that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to do the same thing. But now there's like 200 people looking for an Uber at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, anyways, I said my group was still kind of, gathering some things, and so I said, I told my husband, I said, hey, I'm going to go with James, and we're going to go out to the curb, like leave the airport where you meet the Uber, and I'm going to go out there with him, and so he can catch his Uber ride and all that. And so I walked with James and we were talking, and James lives in Florida. He's in Tampa, um, works for the state of Florida, blah, blah, blah. And so I asked him, I'm like, well, what are you doing in Oklahoma? And this is really cool. And this is a key part of the story, okay? Okay, so get back to me. Come back, come back, come back. I know you've been listening to a lot of airport travel stuff, but listen, come on, come back. Okay. So James tells me that once a year, he and his buddies meet up and they go, and it's always a different sport. It's not always the same sport, but they go to and they meet up for a championship game. And so he was coming to Oklahoma City for the Thunder basketball game. And I think that was it game two of the finals that he went to? It was just on Saturday night. So he was flying into Oklahoma City, and his buddies from different places and some from Florida too. But they had come in the day before, and he goes, well, it looks like I made the bad decision. He goes, I decided to stay back and work one more day. My buddies came the day before, so I was flying in um, on Friday night, and the game's on Saturday night. And so he goes, looks like I should have flown with them the day before. And he kind of laughed. And I was like, oh man, I know. I hate it when that kind of stuff happens. And I'm like, well, I should have this. And I said, nope, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. So this is divinely in line. So, anyways, we're walking. And so he's doing this trip to meet up with his friends. And they do this once a year and they pick a different sport and they go to a championship game. And I was like, that is so cool. So he hadn't done a championship NBA game before. So he's really excited about that. Um, and so we're walking, and and also realized that as far as him and not having his eyesight, I'm not new to the arena of, into people and adults with special needs. My sister was born with her mental disabilities, was born with those. And so because of that, one, I have an inside line to um, just like real life, that of when there are special circumstances, but also the amount of people that I've been able to meet through my sister, friends of hers where she's gone to school, the variety of special needs that these different individuals have had over the years, the different people that I've gotten to know, that it's really comfortable for me. So it's like not an awkward situation. I'm really comfortable with that. And I really feel like I mean, it's just been part of my world. So like I kind of can see ahead of time when someone might need or want someone to like approach and be like, hey, what can I do right now? I'm here and I got time, so how can I help? And it was very possible that he didn't want help, So, and I had asked him, I was like, hey, is there anything I can do for you? And he was like, I mean, I don't know this airport. He does travel all the time. So he's very well traveled, and travels by himself. But he said he was 100% blind, and he's not familiar with this airport. So he doesn't know how to get to the outside to catch the Uber. And I said, well, would it be okay if we walk together and we go out there together? And he was like, thank you, that would be great. So we're walking. And so starting off, I was walking, and I'm a talker too. So, I like to get to know people. And so we're walking, and then I didn't know at what pace he wanted to walk. So I'm walking slow, to which I finally said, hey, James, is this pace okay for you? And he laughed and he goes, I love this. He goes, it's actually a little slow. I don't walk this slow, so it's fine if we could walk a little faster. And I loved that he said that. I was like, oh my God, absolutely. I said, I'm so glad I asked. I said, well, let's go. So then we start walking at, a more fluid pace. And so we get, all the way to the front of the airport and we get outside and he's already done all the things on his phone to get the Uber. And so I waited for him and we just continued to talk and that's when I learned a little bit more about the different things that he goes and does and um, the different sports once a year, they'll save up, they'll do this. And I'm listening and I'm like, that is so cool. I actually liked just the theme of that for any of us. I thought if you like sports, I'm like, that's a really cool thing to start with your friends. Um, but so then everything, is moving along. It is storming, it is raining, the weather is crazy. He's going to have about a 2.5 hour ride to an Uber ride. And so I'm standing there with him, and in the meantime, I'm like, "Hey, James, hang tight right here. We exchanged phone numbers in case we got separated." I said, "I'm going to go back inside, check on something with my group, and then, anyways, come back." So I'm standing there with James. We're chatting some more, and his Uber shows up. Well, I will say this a ton of cars show up because everybody that's leaving the airport is having to get their own Uber. So it's like I'm seeing all these cars with the Uber sign, and I'm like, what type of and then do you know any details as to what's picking you up? And so he told me the type of car that the Uber app had assigned to him. So me being that wasn't super helpful for me because, I said, well, James, I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm like not the car person. So basically, I'm going to do my best to help you find the right car. So I had turned my back for a minute and he took a couple steps and now he was like kind of in the street. And so I went back and I was like, hey, James, you're actually down in the street here where the Uber cars pull up. So can we take 3 steps back? And he was like, oh, yeah. And so he just kind of, heard something and it caused him to move. So we had a good laugh over that. So, anyways, I said, okay, hang tight here. So I go and I start at one end and I go up to the Uber to the different cars. And I'm like, can I ask you who you're picking up? And they say a name. And I'm like, can I ask you? And it's not the him. And so I keep going, right? And then I get about the fifth car I got to. Yeah, about the fifth car I got to. Um, Guy opens as I get up to the front of the driver's side of the car and I said, "Hi." I said, "Can I ask, I'm helping someone find their Uber. Can I ask who you're picking up today?" And I'm not making this up. To me, this is such like a God thing, but um this huge strap-in, very fit black man, so nice, like had like this coolest, like a really like vivid printed shirt on. Just like style game was on point, okay? And it was like massive human, like stepped out of this car. And I said, "Hey," I said, "can I ask you who you're picking up?" And he tells me and points to his phone, and his phone says, "I am deaf. I am picking up," and it had the guy's name. And I'm because I was talking to him, so that's why he showed me his phone. "I am deaf," and I was like, "Okay," I said, "got you." So I said, "Hang tight," and then I went and got James and walked him over and introduced. And I don't know if like I didn't know if the Uber app communicates this, like if James knew that because I know that like on the app, there's different like accessibility features. And so I wasn't sure if James knew that his driver was deaf. But so I went ahead as he got in the car and I let him know, and and that this is how, in the driver's his phone says that he to communicate with him to do it by text. So and that's how James was doing everything on his phone, was through voice text as well. So anyways, I just thought that is so cool. I just thought, man, what I've never had that experience happen. And I thought that it was just very like um, a very remarkable circumstance that shows that everything is always divinely in line and in order. And I just thought it was such a cool moment. So why do I tell you this story about James? Because at that point, James and I, we say our goodbyes. I'm like, it's so cool meeting you. Have the best time at the Thunder game. I'm like so jealous that you're going. I would love to do that. I think it's so cool. You're doing that with your friends. Have the best time. And when you fly back to Tampa, like, fingers crossed, it's going to be like no problem. And so just as he went away in the Uber to take about a 2.5 hour Uber ride to his cousin's house, um, then I was going to go reconvene with my group, and we were getting our Uber and take our 2.5 hour Uber ride to Oklahoma City. But here's why do you tell us about James, Christy? Like, why should we care? Like, what's the whole point of you sharing this in this podcast? Like, it's coming, it's kind of a cool story, but like, why? Here's why. Here is exactly why I am sharing this with you. Because that interaction with James, and there's reasons why I told you certain parts of the story. That interaction with James has to do with overcoming adversity. Think of James when you are wanting to adjust your perspective, when you are faced with an adversity that you're trying to work through. That one moment is not the only moment that James has to overcome an adversity that many of us can take for granted, and we shouldn't. But majority if of us wake up and we have our vision. And so that's not something he gets to wake up and be able to depend on. So he's created other things for himself to where he is like living his life to the fullest. There's so many stories that he had shared with me on different things. Just in the short amount of time that I was with him, things that I learned about him, that he is overcoming adversities. That's been a natural thing for him. He is shifting his perspective. He is living his life to the fullest. My friend, you are the CEO of your own damn life, okay? So if James is overcoming and working through these things, and he's getting on planes, and he's going to cities he's never been, and he's, doing the things that he wants to do, living life on his terms, what is holding you back? What is the excuse you have today for not showing up in your life? What is that excuse? This is your little wake up call that your excuses, they're a bunch of bull crap. You need to let them go. You need to take ownership of your life. Take ownership of your success. Take ownership of the fulfillment in your life. Quit waiting and thinking that either someone else is going to do it for you, that the circumstances got to be lined up just so. Think of James. James was put in a really kind of like an unsettling situation, right? He's 100% blind. He's on a plane on a tarmac for 3 hours. He gets off the plane in a kind of a sketchy situation. He's left in the terminal, and no employee or no gate agent, no one has come to him to say, hey, we've got someone that might need or have a question. And they weren't doing that. Okay. So James is kind of standing there assessing like what he's going to do. Now, I will tell you in the brief amount of time that I spent with James, never once did I feel like he's not living his life to the fullest. Not once did I get the vibe that like he's like, oh, this is so hard and my life is tough and I've got all these things. You know, James has got other things going on in his life, right? He's got problems just like everybody else. He's got things that didn't work out last week, just like you got things that didn't work out last week. Let his courage inspire you. Let his ability to do things that he's wanting to do and not make excuses as he could. I mean, I know people that have all their senses that can see and hear and smell and the touch, and I'm probably forgetting one of the senses, but those are the ones that are coming to mind. They have all of those and they ain't doing a damn thing in their life because they're too, well, I don't want to, and I'm just going to use travel as an example because that's been part of this story. Well, I don't have anybody to go with me. Well, I don't want to travel by myself. So if I don't have, I'm not in a relationship. So I only want to do that if I'm, can go with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or a wife. Or why would I go and do something like that by myself? I mean, why are you making excuses? So if you are not doing the things that you want to do in your life, that is okay. But I want you to take ownership of that. I want you to take ownership of that. James is not letting his excuses get in the way from him doing some things that mean a lot to him. And something that means a lot to him is he loves sports. And so once a year, he wants to figure out a way to go to a big sporting event. And he's been doing that. He's been doing it for a while. I think this is like the sixth year that he's done that. That's why I say he probably looks younger than he is because I'm like, oh, based on that, he's probably like, early 30s. James isn't making excuses. James is dealing with the circumstance that's been dealt to him. And I don't know how he became blind. I don't know if he's been blind since birth. We didn't go into that because it's just none of my business. But I will tell you that James is living his life that was clear in the brief amount of time that I met him and knew him. He's living his life. He's figuring it out. He's not going to let what some people could call a shortcoming, he's not going to let that stop him from doing the things and living the life that he wants to live. So if you have all these other things available to you, and it may not be travel for you, it might be something else. I'm just using that as today's example. But whatever that is for you, why are you letting some lame excuse get in the way from you showing up in your life like you want to? Doing and living and being the way that you want to live. Why are you letting time go by? You got to realize there's people like James. He's not the only one. There's people like that everywhere that are like, yeah, this is a situation, but here's what I'm going to do. And I'm sure that James has bad days, tough days, like all the things. I'm sure he does. But I can tell you in that moment of meeting James, James is about solving the problem at hand, finding a solution. It was not ideal, but he's moving forward. He's doing and living and showing up in his life the way he wants to. We could all take a little piece of that, okay, and apply it to our own life. This is what I talk about so much here on the podcast, what I talk about in my coaching to flourish and thrive in your life. And one of the major ways you're going to do that, my friend, is you've got to take accountability. You've got to take accountability. It's nobody else's responsibility to make you feel a certain way, to give you the courage to live your life. You got to trudge through that. You got to fight those demons in your mind yourself. You've got to push through. Because if you don't, you're always going to make excuses for why you're not doing what you want to do. Life is too short. Life is too short, and you need to show up in your life with enthusiasm, loving your life, taking the hits, knowing that there's things that don't feel good, that are setbacks. Yeah, guess what? We're going to live through those, okay? Most times when people are worried about the setbacks, the failures, it is all ego driven. It is so tied to ego. It's okay to have a little humility. And never forget, you get to decide what that setback means. What you're saying is a failure is truly just a setup for what is greater for you. Shift that perspective. Overcome that adversity. Be the CEO of your own life. Take a little bit of this story that I've shared with you about James and ask yourself, how can I bring some of that into my own world? That's why I shared that story with you today, because I know somebody's going to hear this podcast and be like, damn, I need I need a little bit of that James attitude in my world. So that's my challenge for you this week is for you to show up and do the things, create the life that you freaking want to have and experience. We're co-creating this with God all the time. So you are the CEO of your own life, my friend. So let's get with it. If you're tired of the excuses, if you feel like you just can't figure some things out, you want support, you need accountability, you need coaching, you need mentorship, you need to reach out to me. You need to reach out to me. That's exactly what I help people do. That's exactly what I help people do, is build the life that they truly desire. To work through those hurdles. The answers are in you, my friend. The answers are inside of you. All right, well, enough of the travel story and Puerto Rico story, and I'm going to try to keep my tan going on here for as we roll through summer. Get my free download, the Flourishing Summer Strategy, down here in the show notes. If you're not seeing it, comment the word summer, and my team will make sure that you get the link so you can get that in your hands and get going to create these next 2 or 3 months exactly with the success and the fulfillment that you're wanting to have. All right, you guys, I will see you next week here on the podcast. Until then, keep flourishing. I'll see you soon. I want to thank you for tuning in today to the podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and all the info that's been shared today. And I hope you've come away with a few ideas on how to make the most out of it for your life. If you loved this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family. And also make sure you subscribe to the podcast and tap that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Also, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would leave a podcast review. So until next time, my friend, keep flourishing and thriving and live your life to the